One American city, before the Civil War, was richer than New York. Not richer in total, richer per person, the wealthiest city on the entire continent. It had no gold mine, no oil field, no factories worth the name. It built that fortune by sending teenage boys in open wooden rowboats after a 60-ton predator with teeth the size of a man's forearm. In a single peak year, this city alone controlled more than half of America's entire whaling fleet. Over 300 ships hunting nearly 2/3 of the world's whale oil supply. And every single one of those ships was betting that its crew could come home before the ocean or the animal decided otherwise. This is the story of New Bedford, the city that got rich by going to war with the largest predator on Earth, and won just long enough for it to matter. New Bedford did not choose to become rich by accident. A handful of Quaker merchants engineered it. They found a harbor that never froze, close enough to open ocean to launch ships fast, and they built a machine designed to do one thing: convert dead whales into liquid gold, because that's what whale oil was in the 1800s. Not a novelty, the fuel, the only thing lighting American homes, factories, and city streets before electricity existed. And one substance in particular, spermaceti, harvested from inside a sperm whale's skull, burned so clean it became the gold standard of light itself. Demand for that oil didn't just grow, it exploded. And New Bedford's merchants realized something ruthless. The animal that produced it also happened to be the most dangerous creature a wooden boat could pick a fight with. They didn't build an industry around a resource. They built an industry around a gamble and made an entire city bet on it. Picture the hunt. A 30-man crew packed onto a ship for a voyage that could last 2, 3, sometimes 4 years. No phones, no rescue. Land sometimes months away in any direction. When a whale surfaces, 6 men drop into a rowboat barely bigger than the animal itself and row directly at it. They throw a hand harpoon, and then the hunters become the hunted. A wounded sperm whale doesn't just die. It runs. It drags that small boat across the ocean at speeds no crew could survive, falling out into. A ride sailors nicknamed the Nantucket Sleigh Ride, because calling it anything else would mean admitting how close to death it actually was. Some whales didn't run. Some turned around. There are documented cases of sperm whales destroying entire ships with their heads alone. The same animal that inspired Moby Dick was based on a real whale that did exactly that. Add scurvy, add starvation, add storms that could snap a hull in half in the Arctic with no help for 1,000 miles. And the whale could win. In 1851, a real ship called the Anne Alexander was hunting sperm whales in the Pacific, when one of them turned on the hunting boats, smashed them both, then turned again, and rammed the main ship itself twice, until the hull gave out and the entire vessel sank. The crew survived by pure luck, picked up days later by another ship. It was not the first time this had happened. It would not be the last. This is the same species of attack that had already destroyed the whale ship Essex 30 years earlier. The true story that inspired Moby Dick itself. New Bedford's oil wasn't harvested. It was extracted from an animal capable of killing every man on the boat that came for it. And that risk is exactly what made the profit so obscene. Here's what the recruiting posters never mentioned. Railmen weren't paid a wage. They were paid a lay, a fractional share of whatever the voyage brought back, decided in advance by the ship's owner. A green, inexperienced sailor on his first voyage might be handed a lay of 0.1% of the total profit. Before the ship even left the dock, that same sailor was already in debt, charged for his own boarding, his own gear, his own supplies, all bought from the ship's onboard store at inflated prices. Any bandages, tobacco, or extra clothing needed mid-voyage came from that same store, on credit, with interest. A voyage could last 4 years. If the hunt went badly, or the sailor spent too much from the company's store, he could return to port after 4 years at sea and find out he owed the ship money. The whale wasn't the only predator on that voyage. The system recruiting the crew was built to profit, whether the hunt succeeded or not. By the mid-1800s, New Bedford couldn't fill its ships with local labor anymore. Too many men had died. Too many had heard the truth about the lay system and refused to sign. So the recruiters went further. Ships began stopping at the Azores and Cape Verde, remote Atlantic islands, specifically to recruit young men who had never heard of the slop chest, never seen the debt trap, and saw a whaling contract as the only ticket off an island with almost no other economy. Thousands signed on. Many were teenagers. Most had no idea what a 4-year voyage actually meant until they were already at sea, already in debt, already too far from home to turn back. Some never left New Bedford once the voyage ended, not by choice alone, but because there was often nothing to return to and nowhere else to go. They built the neighborhoods that still define this city today. Their descendants make up one of the largest Cape Verdean and Portuguese communities anywhere in the United States. New Bedford didn't just exploit an ocean. When the local supply of desperate men ran out, it started importing them from across it. Here's the part that should be impossible. It worked. By 1857, New Bedford's fleet alone had grown to 329 ships, out of the entire American whaling fleet of 593. This one city controlled more than half the country's whaling tonnage. Nearly half of the entire world's whale oil trade ran through this single Massachusetts harbor. The evidence is still standing. A single street, County Street, on the hill above the harbor, filled with mansions so extravagant that visitors compared them to European palaces, built entirely on money extracted from an animal that could kill the men extracting it. But go one street over, down near the water, and there's a small chapel whalemen visited before every voyage.
Inside, marble plaques, cenotaphs, empty graves, one for every sailor who left this harbor and never came home. No body, no burial, just a name carved into a wall that kept growing longer with every failed voyage. Captains walked past that wall on their way to the ships, and went anyway. For every mansion on County Street, there's a name on that wall that paid for it, and the city built both, on purpose, right next to each other. No empire built on a single resource survives forever, and New Bedford's ending came from a direction nobody in the whaling industry could fight back against. In 1859, a well in Pennsylvania struck petroleum. Cheaper to extract, cheaper to refine. Zero risk of getting your ship destroyed by an angry 60-ton animal 3,000 miles from land. Within a couple of decades, the price of everything New Bedford had built its identity on collapsed. Sperm oil that once dictated the light in every American home became obsolete almost overnight. Ships that had once launched wars against the ocean now sat idle in a harbor with nothing left to hunt profitably. The industry that made this city richer than New York per person was killed not by the whale, but by a rock underground in a state its captains had never even sailed to. The Predator never beat New Bedford. A hole in the ground in Pennsylvania did. Here's the twist almost nobody outside New England knows. New Bedford didn't stay broken. Right now, today, this same harbor is the single most valuable fishing port in the entire United States. Not by volume, by value. It has held that title for over 2 decades straight. Boats from Alaska pull in more total pounds of seafood. None of them pull in more total dollars. The reason? Scallops. New Bedford's fleet lands more high-value Atlantic sea scallops than any other port in the country, generating hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And the danger that built this city's original fortune never actually disappeared. Commercial fishing remains one of the deadliest professions in America, far more dangerous statistically than police work or firefighting. Scallopers still spend days hauling heavy steel dredges up from the ocean floor in brutal Atlantic weather, on boats that can be caught by a rogue wave or a sudden storm with no warning at all. Some years, the industry changed. The math didn't. The animal changed. The mansions changed hands. The wall of names is still there, and the ocean this city built its identity fighting is still, right now,
the thing keeping it rich. New Bedford was never supposed to outearn New York City. A small Massachusetts harbor was never supposed to control half the world's whale oil trade, or produce mansions that rivaled European estates, or bury its money and its dead on the same two streets. But it did, because a handful of merchants looked at the most dangerous animal in the ocean and decided the profit was worth the risk. That risk built a fortune. It also built a wall of names that never came home. And more than a century and a half after the last whaling ship left this harbor for the final time, New Bedford is still, today, pulling its wealth out of the same unforgiving water, proof that this city never actually stopped betting everything on the ocean. It just changed what it was hunting. The whales are gone. The gamble never left.